Welcome to the Rochester, New Hampshire History Podcast, a monthly show that will shine a light on a piece of history that has been all but forgotten.
The Rochester Cemetery is alive with history. Perhaps you are interested in the historical figures buried there, or interested in the beautiful monuments, or are curious about the local culture. Then a visit to the Rochester Cemetery is worth your while. Within its confines stand elaborate monuments for the leading citizens of Rochester, as well as simple, plain markers that celebrate the lives of lesser-known men and women. The origin of this beautiful cemetery begins in the year 1800. Back then, the main cemetery for Rochester was located behind the current location of U-Haul on South Main Street. This was a great location, and many of Rochester's founding fathers are buried there. By the 1860s, this burial ground was running out of room, and a new location was needed. In 1864, the Rochester Cemetery Association bought land on the north side of what we now call Franklin Street for a new cemetery. By 1877, they increased their size by purchasing land on the other side of the street.
The first burial was in August 1865 for Jonathan Overend. His untimely death was caused by a falling from the second story of a mill in East Rochester. He was only 37 years old. Some may not know that on the southern side of the cemetery, near the railroad tracks, is an area that is mowed and well kept. Buried here are several paupers, or indigent people. These are graves for people too poor to afford a proper burial. No stones or markers were placed in these sites, and their names are lost to history.
Some notable people are buried here, such as Charles Gaffney. His monument is one of the tallest in the cemetery. Charles was a successful lawyer and built the Victorian mansion known as the Gaffney Home on Wakefield Street. Did you know Charles was a soldier in the Civil War and was shot in the leg during the Battle of Petersburg? So serious was the wound that the bullet could not be extracted. He had to carry the bullet in his leg for 17 years until he could find a doctor that could extract it. Here is Silas Hussey's monument. Silas was a master stonecutter and is most known for building the downtown stone bridge that spans the Cocheco River.
General Conrad Snow served in World War I as an artillery captain in France. In World War II, he attained the rank of general. In addition to his military duties, he also established a law practice in Rochester and served 2 years in the New Hampshire State Legislature. Nahum Eaton. During the Civil War, he and his 3 brothers enlisted in the Army. Nahum fought in 11 major battles, including Bull Run, Antietam, and Gettysburg. After the war, he served the city in the legislature, school board, and as postmaster.
Frank Kendall, who was heavily involved in the Kendall Insurance Company. He died suddenly in 1920 while fishing in North Wakefield. Miles Dustin was buried here in 1960. He is best known for building the bandstand on the Common in 1914. He and his wife Margaret were the first husband and wife to serve together in a state legislature anywhere in the country.
The most recognizable monument is the Seth Adams Monument. Seth passed away in 1873 after amassing a fortune working with his brother designing and selling printing presses. Dodge Hotel, built in 1851 by the Dodge family on Central Square. The hotel was very popular and was a mainstay in downtown Rochester in the latter half of the 19th century. The Dodge family are buried in the north side of the cemetery, and they have a very elaborate monument. Aside from the history, there are beautiful monuments and landscapings that are breathtaking. If you ever need to stretch your legs, then visit the Rochester Cemetery. You will get fresh air, discover local history, and view beautiful artwork.
This ends the podcast. If you have any questions or comments, please email bobgriffinpodcast@gmail.com and come back next month for another episode of Rochester, New Hampshire History.